Welcome back to Briggs on Books, our international talk show where we talk to authors from all over the world. Today we've talked to people in Amsterdam and Australia. Now I think we're going to come back to the United States somewhere in the Southwest. And check out this book. I always point the wrong way. Venerable. I hope I got that right. I can't see that far anymore. But not only do I have the book and a series of books by Samuel Freedman. We actually have Samuel Freedman here. Welcome, Samuel.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Good. Where are you? Somewhere in the Southwest, I guess.
I'm in Gilbert, Arizona. It's a suburb of Phoenix.
Now, this is a series of books, 4 books. Is that right?
Yes.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, I don't want to tell you too much because it would be spoilers. Yes. But it's science fiction. It's set several hundred years in the future. And it is basically about the society at that time is dominated by women. And it's a utopia. There's no crime, there's no war, and that's just sort of the setup. So if that was the whole story, it wouldn't be very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it takes us quite away from reality. Or could this be a reality for the future?
Well, anything's possible. The third book in the series actually is the backstory of how we got from here to there. But you still want to read the books in order.
Go in order.
But I was inspired to write this series, or the basic idea came to me. I grew up sort of, my own personal world was pretty much dominated by women. I have 3 sisters. I had 1 mother, 2 stepmothers. I have 3 daughters who happen to be triplets.
Oh boy!
I've been married more than once. I have to admit, and I actually worked in an advertising agency. One of my first jobs out of college was a small advertising agency. It was owned by a woman, and I was the only male employee among about 15 people. So I know what it's like to live in a world dominated by women.
Didn't take much imagination for you.
Not from my perspective, no.
Are the books based in a city that we would recognize?
No, actually the name of the town or the city that the book takes place is called Venerable.
Venerable, okay.
That's where the name of the first book comes from, yes.
And somehow women have gained the power, which maybe, I don't know, we'll find out when we read the books, that maybe the world will run better.
Well, that's pretty much the premise at the beginning of the book, yeah.
Now, you call it, was it social science fiction?
Yes. It's science fiction, but I guess you could call it a subgenre where I examine, alternative social structures and systems and forms of government and things of that nature. And this is really my first foray into that, but I intend on doing a few more similar things with completely different societies in the future.
Yeah, for people who write science fiction, it's amazing to me because you have to keep track of so many things that don't exist in the real world, and keep your continuity throughout 4 books. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's the thing is though, they're still human beings, and day to day, their lives aren't that different from our own.
Yeah.
As far as the things that go on, the things that they're challenged with, that type of thing. They just have more technology and, that type of thing.
I know that sometimes you do some painting. Or did you create the covers of these books?
Yes, I use, different apps, to create the covers. And I had initially, when I first published Venerable, I had a service do the cover for me. It was very nice, but then I kind of decided to go in a different direction, something a little more dynamic, and I found some resources where I could do it on my own, and I enjoy doing that as well. So I think I'll continue to do that going forward as long as people say the covers look nice.
Yeah, well, they are. How do we, Samuel, how do we pick the next book we're going to read? I mean, there's millions of books out there, and sometimes if the cover grabs me, I'm all in, and these covers are all great. We just put all 4 of them up there, and they're just, they're works of art.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Who should be reading these books? Are they written for a certain audience?
They're written for primarily an adult audience, I think, but they're not there's no language or any content in there that's not suitable for a teenager. I started reading science fiction when I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and I was reading things like Brave New World and 1984 and the classics, Fahrenheit 451, that have some pretty heavy thematic elements, but they were still appropriate, I think, for a teenager, preteen. They want to read something that involved. Everybody's different, but so it's pretty much for everybody, I think, that likes science fiction.
We have a lot of authors on who have strong women characters, and I love that. I love a strong woman character. And these women, I guess, are strong women characters?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of different characters. There's conflicts, just like there is in any story between characters. So some of the women are stronger than others. Some of their values are different than others. Runs the full gamut. Those kinds of. I believe those kinds of characteristics that people have really aren't different between men and women.
Right.
Men or women can be good, bad, happy, sad, whatever, how you want to describe it. So, I think all the characters in the book are pretty strong. But there's definitely some that are stronger than others, I would say.
I guess what I'm looking for is I'm asking, do they need a man to come in and save them?
No, I wouldn't say that that's a thematic element of it at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I would say that you might conjure a thought that maybe diversity is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I don't read a lot of science fiction, but what's the amazing part is that the way you write it, you got to kind of suspend disbelief. You got to bring in the reader and make them think, yeah, this could be a real thing.
Yeah, and like I said before, I think you do that really with the characters and the character interaction. Like I said before, they're still human beings. They might just live in a space age, house that cooks all their food for them, or they're flying through the sky instead of driving on a road, or whatever it is. And one of the reasons why the society is utopian is that nobody really has to work very hard. Everything gets handled for them with technology, so they can focus on art and other leisurely endeavors, which you would think would make for a more pleasant lifestyle.
Yeah. Now we have amongst our viewership are people who are writing books, have been trying to write a book, try to finish writing a book, which means put the pencil down and go to the next step, which is maybe more work than writing the book itself. Tell us, what is your discipline? You get up every morning at 6 a.m. and start writing?
Yeah, well, I don't get up at 6 a.m. every day, I'll admit. 7:30 is maybe a good time for me to wake up. But I do block out a solid amount of time every day to write. That was one of the first lessons I learned when I was interested in writing, is that it's just like anything else. If you don't make it a habit, you're never going to do what you need to do. So I look forward to it. I enjoy writing, so it's not a chore for me.
Yeah.
So I have that advantage. I mean, I look forward to doing it. It's fun.
Right.
But I always make sure. Typically what I do is I have a release date for a book that I have in mind, like 6 months from now or whatever, and then I have an app that tells me how many words a day I need to write to hit that goal. And then I just make sure I always exceed that number.
Make sure you're
every day.
Hitting your numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, we have so many authors on the show, and everybody has a different way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your way works good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I have, I'll have writer's block like anybody else, and I'll have days where it takes me 3 hours to do that, and then I'll have days where things are just flowing, and it'll take me a half an hour. And that's usually a day that I'll choose to keep going and get, ahead of myself a little bit.
Now, you have these series of social science fiction series. You've written some nonfiction books as well.
Yeah, I wrote, the first book I published, I was actually my senior year in college, so it's quite a long time ago. And I'm I'm a sports fan, and that's sort of the thing that I do with my spare time is follow sports teams that I've been a fan of since I was a kid, really.
Yeah.
And one of them was my college team, and there was a very controversial event where they fired a very popular coach because he was a big winner, but he had abused a player,
Mm.
and it was a big media storm here in the Phoenix area. And myself and a couple of my other journalism major friends, so we were still in school. I was a journalism major as an undergraduate, and we got together, including some photojournalists, that were still in school. We were all still in school, and we put together this book about the whole thing when it had wrapped up, kind of a retrospective on the whole controversy and everything.
Wow.
So that was in like 1979. And then my triplet daughters were born in 1987, and they were 3 months premature, and which back then was a pretty touchy situation, but they're all doing extremely well. One of them was born blind, but she has a PhD. She runs a company now, and it was never any barrier to her. I think that was partially because of her sisters. She just always thought she was supposed to be doing whatever they were doing, so that was an advantage to her to be a triplet. But anyway, we wrote a book together when she was in high school about her life growing up as a visually impaired person up to that point in her life, and it's called See It My Way.
Is that still available out there?
It's not online. I'm talking to her about re-releasing it as an ebook.
Yeah.
There are maybe a few dozen copies of the printed version in a box somewhere. But again, that was published in about 2003, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
So, but yeah, I've had people ask me if they can still get it, and so that's something I'm taking a look at for sure.
I've been showing the covers of these 4 books, this series. What's next for you, Sam?
Well, I'm actually working on a novel right now, and this is going to be a standalone, more of an epic type of a thing. The series, each of those books is only about 200 to 250 pages. They're pretty easy reads, one at a time. But this one's going to be more like an epic, like it's going to be 500 or 600 pages, and it's going to stand alone. And it's science fiction. It's about 2 scientists. One is a geneticist in the Ukraine. The other one is an astrophysicist in Australia. And they, around the same time, make some very fantastic discoveries in their own disciplines, which are completely unrelated. And then the story is basically about what does this mean, and is there a connection, and it's a near future. It's almost like could be a year or 2 from now. This could be happening.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot happening with genetics and astrophysics right now. So, Sam, you're a fascinating guest, and we're running out of time. In fact, they say, Mike, you keep going over with these guys, but you're a great guest. I just love seeing how your mind works and how you create these books, and that of course you have another book coming out because you get up and you write for a certain period every day, and books naturally come with that kind of discipline. So anyway, any last thoughts about your books? Any message to our viewers? Anything in the world you want to say?
Well, I think that they would find the series, the Venerable series, very compelling, very interesting. I think it's very original and different from anything else they may have read before. And there definitely will be some surprises in there if you like twists and turns and that type of thing. And I just think the subject matter in this day and age is interesting and has some value. So I think people would find it a very compelling read.
Great. I urge our viewers, go start at Sam's website. There it is on the screen, Freedman-author.com, and find out about him and about his books and order his books. Thank you, Samuel. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I hope you'll come back again and again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
All right. And for our viewers, don't go anywhere because we'll be back in just a minute with another author.